guys, how's it going? Welcome to this week's recap video. It's been another really great week full of projects, and summer arrived
It's here.
this week. I think literally and temperature-wise. So
Yeah.
doesn't summer start like the 20th or 22nd or something like that?
Somewhere around there.
Somewhere around there. We've had a couple of days at 100 degrees, and oh my goodness, it's like everything kind of hits the fan when it hits that 100-degree mark. It's like no amount of drip that you've run to these little annuals that you just planted is enough, and you're just kind of running around. Like Bethany's probably out there just watering all the things, and then I will be out watering all the things here when we're done with this recap video. But anyway, we are expecting a cool down though tonight. It's supposed to cool down like 15 degrees or so, low 80s tomorrow, which will be great. We'll get a lot of wind, but it'll be nice to be a little bit more mild. Before we jump into the videos, I did want to mention that our Garden Answer augers are now available on our website, gardenanswer.com, the full range. So it's been a project we've been working on for months now. We've had the 2 and 3 inch, we used to call them the Laura Edition augers, available for quite a long time.
Yeah, a year or two.
Yeah, something
Maybe
like
just
that.
last year.
But we've been working on the 5, 7, and 9 inch diameter augers, making them, like specking them out to where it's the best, we think. So we have been using them off camera just to put them through their paces, make sure we like everything about them before we decide to add them to the line. Now we're referring to them as Garden Answer augers, and I'm just so excited about them. They're all 36 inches in length. They all have reduced flighting, which is that metal ring around the bottom, because in a home garden setting, like having flighting that comes up the auger this far, I feel was kind of unnecessary, and it adds a tremendous amount of weight. For example, like the 9 inch auger, the older one, which they're all still great augers. They're all made by Power Planter, the Garden Answer augers and the ones we still have that are Power Planter on our website. They're all great, but the 9 inch older one is 3.5 pounds heavier and shorter. So we've made it 8 inches longer and lighter in weight. And over the course of a big planting project, that adds up big time.
It's still heavy duty though.
Yeah.
It's not like, made it to where it's going to fall apart. Like
it
still feels good.
It feels easier. Like the hardest part in our garden to dig holes is the area right in front of our dumpster, part of the flower bed. It's such hard pan right there. I don't know why, but it's hard. Like it's like smoking, sort of.
Yeah.
Like it gets so hot in those holes, and then I feel like I'm planting my things in like a coffin of hard pan because you can knock on the side of the hole. It's just so tough. But these just like zip through it. I mean, you dug in there yesterday, and you don't have to bend. With the height being what it is, I can just stand there with the auger and I'm not like hunched over like the older ones. Also, I'm 5'4", and Aaron, you are 6'1".
Yeah.
And it's a great height for both of us. So anyway, we're so excited about them, and we hope you give them a try, because I do think if we can refine these tools and make them easier on our bodies, especially as, we're getting older and doing more and more gardening projects, you kind of figure out those things that will help out, and this helps out.
I don't know if you mentioned it in a video, but Greg, the owner of Power Planter, sent me a text, and he was like, hey, my mom has had like 7 back surgeries and can't use a shovel, and she sent Greg a text saying these augers, the Laura's augers, they're like, I can zip holes in the ground with this because you don't have to bend over. So if you've got back issues, you can still use these.
We think they're pretty awesome. So anyway, you can check them out on our store, gardenanswer.com. I think that's it before we need to jump in. So first video was planting single plant containers around the Hartley and harvesting garlic. And I think I did that on a weekend. You were rolling around with the kids and like they were kind of coming in and out. And I just wanted to kind of piddle around and do little projects. So I decided to toss the camera up and show you guys. We had those smaller containers that flanked the benches on the north side of the Hartley. They didn't have anything in them, but I didn't want to do anything too flashy. Like I didn't want big annual color because the parterre is so full of color. We've got the bullseye salmon, geraniums, and the Supertunia Bordeaux Supertunias in there, and they're so vibrant and so pretty. I'm really enjoying it, but I don't want anything around it to distract. And I feel like it would be very easy to overdo with color and that sort of thing. So I wanted very pretty plants and structural, but nothing that was like. So we used Lavender Lady Mangaves as well as the Thunderbird Mangave, some Angel Wing Senecio, and then we moved to the front of the Hartley, planted up the 2 iron urns with lantana, and then we made it out to harvest the garlic, which was a couple weeks in advance of most years. We were harvesting right around the 4th of July, but mine had dried down. I think it would have been too dried down if I would have waited. So sometimes it's good to learn how to read your crops. Every year is different weather-wise. And that way you can get after chores when it's more time appropriate to do that, instead of waiting till the book tells you to do it or the guides tell you to do it, because that could be too late or too early based on how your plants are reacting to that year's weather. Anyway, first question is from Laura. Why aren't you eating your artichokes? I just don't think to eat the artichokes. I don't really have any interest in cooking them, and I don't really love them. They're fine.
They look kind of prehistoric to me.
They do. I think my enjoyment comes from growing stuff and finding that location, especially for plants who don't normally winter over for us. It's like I've unlocked a secret, to find out where I can grow them successfully and in those cold frames. Definitely successful with the artichokes in there. I am about ready to pull them though. I'm ready for something different in there, and I think you're probably ready at this point for something different. They're almost done blooming, so we'll let them bloom, enjoy that, and then we'll go in with something different. Mary said, just wondering, do you wear hats or visors when you're not filming? I don't, but I probably will start. At some point here, you're going to see a little bit of a shift. I feel like I'm getting to that point in my life where I'm looking at my skin thinking like, is that a sunspot?
Yeah.
Possibly. I need to start treating my skin a lot better, and I probably should have treated it a lot better earlier on. So if you're younger than me, which there's a lot of people younger than me, definitely treat your skin really, really good. I do really well. Really good.
You can say whichever
Eat
one
it really
you want.
well. Anyway, I do wear sunscreen every single day, and I do apply on days where I'm sweating it off. I reapply through the day. So I think that's been helpful, but I do feel like I'm getting to a point where like maybe I should protect my hands a little more. I don't know. Maybe I should be wearing a big hat so that my face is protected. The problem is anything touches my face and like I will get a rash, I will break out, like anything So if I wear anything that goes across my forehead, it just like makes me itch. And
yeah.
I do think though that wearing long-ish sleeves, pants, having my hair down has been a boon.
Yeah.
For sure. I mean, you see people who are working out in the fields as for their living, and they're covered completely to where all you can see is like a little bit of their face. They've got hoodies up and cinched around their heads. Complete coverage. I mean, long sleeves and then gloves, pants, they're not showing any skin except for a little tiny bit of their face. And oftentimes they have their hoodie on, a little bit of their face, and a huge straw hat.
Yeah.
So they're really protecting themselves from the sun. Some wisdom there. Tony said, I noticed your Espoma fertilizer stored in your barn. Does it not get too hot in there? If not, what is too hot for storage? I don't think that heat has anything to do with it. I would think that getting it wet makes more of an issue, which some of ours got a little bit like we tarp them, but the wind will kind of mess with the tarps. I think we're going to try to do a lot better job of tarping this winter because if water gets in, that's when it kind of like clumps together, and then the smell.
It's like death.
It's bad. But I don't think any amount of heat in the barn, as long as it's staying dry, will make the fertilizer go bad or anything. Keith Smith said, what happened to Bad Hair Day? Didn't make the cut? So I had a mangave called Bad Hair Day in the back of the gator, and I thought I was going to use it, and no, it did not make the cut. It wasn't the right visual look in the groupings that I was making. Megan said, can you store the garlic in a refrigerator? Storing garlic, like fresh cloves of garlic in the refrigerator, isn't ideal. You can for a few days, but long-term storage-wise, I think it's too cold in there and it will want to start to sprout earlier than normal. I want to say, what's the proper temperature? Is it like between, what is it? I can't remember. Garlic temperature. Hang on. I've got that thing hanging in the... It says 32 to 50 degrees Fahrenheit and 60 to 70% humidity on my guide in the root cellar. I think 32 is a little bit chilly. We usually keep ours between 35 and 45, right in that range. ALCG said, garlic question. I understand now, since you informed us, that the lower leaves die down and make their way under the soil to envelop the garlic head. Yeah, so you'll see these leaves coming up the stalk of garlic. Well, if you follow those leaves down, that's what's growing down underneath the soil, enveloping that head of garlic. So the leaves kind of start at the base, go around the head of garlic, and then cruise up that stalk. So when you notice those outer leaves toward the base of your stalk of garlic start to die back, that means that they're starting to deteriorate a little bit below the soil surface. You want to see a little bit of that, but not too much of that. It's kind of a signal for you when the tops of the garlic start to, like the tops of the leaves start to brown and die back, and you start noticing the bottom leaves, like 2-3 leaves start to brown and die back. That's the perfect time to get them up out of the ground. That way you know they've kind of made it to their very end, but they haven't started to deteriorate too much. There were a few heads of garlic that like the entire stalk and everything was completely brown and flopped down on the ground. I will use those first because they were past kind of the point of when I should have harvested them, and they wouldn't last as long shelf life wise for storage. GL Gardner said, do you coat your metal planters to prevent them from rusting? Nope, we do not. Resin Bouquet said, do you cut the scapes off the garlic a few weeks before harvest for bigger heads? I do. All of ours had scapes, and we went out there, the kids and I, and we cut them all back. They thought it was great fun. And the scapes are, like, you'll notice the stalk of the garlic come up, and then they'll kind of curve, and then there'll be a little ball at the end, and those are just like the bloom head, the seed head of the garlic. So if you cut those off, then the garlic's going to send way more energy into bulb production, making the bulbs bigger rather than trying to send energy into creating the seed. Next video is pruning, deadheading, and early summer cleanup in the west side flower bed. I decided to do that in lieu of actually putting pond plants in. We had gone that morning to pick up pond plants, but many of them were tropical and they had been in a very warm building. And that morning it was, 40 degrees? Or it was going to be 40 degrees that night.
Yeah.
And it was blustery and kind of spitting rain through the day, and it was chilly. I was in a vest that whole day. It was so wild to me that like 5 days later we're sweating our heads off, 100 degrees, and then June is kind of a weird month for us sometimes. Not that I'm complaining. I love those cooler days. But I decided that west side needs some attention, and that was a great day to get out there and get it done. So Mary said, how do you sharpen your hedge trimmers? We haven't. I don't know if you can get new blades for those DeWalt hedge trimmers.
Yeah, I don't know.
It seems like, because they'll come off, and you could probably take them in somewhere to get them sharpened.
Yeah, I don't know if you're supposed to sharpen them yourself with like a file.
Maybe you can't. I mean, you could for sure.
But they're all jagged. I don't know if you really can.
Get in there good enough?
Yeah, I don't know how you do that.
I don't know. It looks like you can take the things off and maybe get yourself a new blade to put in there.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know. We should look into that. I do have a pair in here in the studio that nobody's allowed to use except for whoever's trimming boxwoods. They're like boxwood only shears, because the other hedge trimmers I use for perennial cleanup, and they just get all gummed up, and that's not ideal to use for boxwood hedging, because you want to do as sharp a blade as possible so you're not, and you're making a clean cut instead of like doing this on the leaf and kind of tearing up the edge with dull and like sappy hedge trimmers. So
you don't want to smash the stems.
Right. Lori said, also beautiful. How in the world do you manage to deadhead and prune roses without gloves? I get scratched and poked to death. I think I've just been doing it for so long. And I do get poked every once in a while, but I just know where to grab them, and I go kind of slow. I know it looks like I'm going super fast because we speed up a lot of that. Otherwise it'd be so boring to watch. But I just kind of grab it from the top and pop it in the bag. So I usually don't come up against tons of thorns. If I am going to be working like all up in a rose bush that's really thorny, like the colettes, when I do a big prune, I wear those Felco gloves. I don't even remember what number they are, but maybe you can pop it up on the screen. They're kind of like white and red. Mm-hmm. They're not actual rose gloves, but they are amazing. They work really well. 1950 said, who will do all this deadheading when you get older and can't get up and down? Maybe we won't live here.
Yeah.
At that point. I don't know. I don't tend to think about that. I don't, you kind of cross that bridge when you get to it, right?
Yeah.
You can't let it keep you down now. Lori said, could you prune the black lace elderberry in a tree form like you do with the Instant Karma? Absolutely. And would you do anything different with your Instant Karma elderberry, i.e. keep it in a shrub form or plant it somewhere else? I do have Instant Karma elderberry in another location toward the end of the west side garden that I have left in shrub form. All of our black lace, I don't think I've trimmed any of them into tree form because it hasn't made sense where we've had it. But yeah, you could absolutely train any one of them into a tree form or leave them in shrub form. Whatever kind of works for the space the best. Chris said, can we get an update about the weather station you guys installed? I've been interested in getting one and wanted to know how you guys like it.
I like it. We haven't reinstalled it since we've done all the construction back behind the barn, because that's where it was living. So it's there, but it's kind of sitting in the shade right now. So it kind of just like hasn't been top of mind. But I do want to get it reinstalled once there's less stuff going on, because that's the best spot to put it.
Yeah.
But I've been waiting for Chad and Pedro, and it's, the electric company. There's just so many different things to get figured out.
So where it's at currently, it can get temperature, but it's not going to get proper wind speed or rain.
Because it's kind of like right up next to the barns, too close to the barns. So We'll put it back out eventually.
Donna said, I'm wondering why you don't paint some kind of do not grow back goop on the fresh cuts of your elderberry bush. That stuff exists, right? The elderberries, they usually aren't growing back from my cuts. They're just growing from different parts of the plant or shooting them up from the bottom. There is like sucker punch. There's like a spray you can put on that I've used before in the past for like crab apples and things like that I tend to get suckers from the same exact spots. Other than that, like we just used some of the vine and stump removal, but I couldn't use it on anything I wanted to keep. That would enter the plant system and probably kill it. So you want to be very careful with that. But I typically don't on those. I don't use anything. They're so easy. I mean, even when I do a major overhaul like I did that day on the 2 elderberries, they're easy to cut. It's very soft wood. You can almost like, just very easy job. Ender Leia said, I'd really like to deadhead my roses, but if I do, am I foregoing rose hips? Yep, you are. You will help encourage more blooms, though, because your plant will have a chance to set more blooms. But there are a couple of 3 roses on our property. The Morden Blush roses that are by our Weeping Willow, by the Hartley. They would continue to bloom through the season if we deadheaded that first massive flush of blooms, but I like to leave them. Because I like those to form hips because they form up the great big beautiful ones that I can use in decorating. So there's some of them that would still bloom again and you could leave those blooms to form hips, but they don't get as big when you go for like that second crop of bloom for rose hips, if that makes sense. And some roses don't hip out quite as much as others. Some will just have bigger hips. What?
It's like a t-shirt design. Something about hips.
Hips? Rose hips? Karma is bad said, what would cause my Veronica to splay out? Not as if an animal were laying on them, but they grow more flat instead of upright like yours are growing. It could be a different variety, possibly. It could be a light thing, a water thing. All of those are possibilities. Fertilizer, possibly, depending on your soil. Cindy said, what would happen if you didn't deadhead the roses? Or other than making it look tidy, does deadheading increase bloom production? Yes, typically your plant is then going to divert energy from producing those rose hips or rose seeds, and they'll put it into producing more blooms. Okay, next video was the container competition 1-month update. And I do want to show you something that I've been meaning to show you for the last couple of weeks that we were sent from Rick in Ontario, Canada. So this right here is the Golden Container Award. So Rick and Sandy in Ontario, Canada, Rick wrote the letter and he said his wife Sandy watches the videos. She's the gardener, but he watches and is supportive of what his wife's hobbies are, which I think is awesome. So they were watching this container competition and we were discussing what the award could be.
Yeah.
And he was like, I need to fix this. I need to create an award. So he went out into his shop and created this, which I think is the most clever thing ever. It's a Garden Answer Golden Container Award. It says this year's winner, Laura.
Which is wrong.
Or flip it over.
There you go.
This year's winner is Aaron. So depending on who wins, we get to display the Golden Container Award to its appropriate winner. So Thank you, Rick, for making that. I think that is just so neat. I just love it. We'll just do one of these real quick before we continue on. So the interesting part about this video is that the background looked 100% different than it did when we planted them out. When we planted them out, the grass field behind us was still green. Yeah. It was like starting its decline a little bit, but it was still green, and now it's brown because we're not irrigating it. Because there's no point right now to irrigate that space.
I don't want more to mow, certainly.
No. And we don't have a sprinkler system or water set up to that space. We're working on that right now, and it'll be a while.
Yeah.
So it's just like, we knew it was going to be an eyesore. We knew it.
Sure.
And I was like a little dragging my feet about that part of it. But it's nice to have some pretty pots to look at. It's just hard to be like, look at these beautiful pots. Ignore the deathscape that's right behind them.
Not very lush.
No. And it's funny too, about 2 days after we did this video, we had our first really hot couple of days, the 100-degree days, and they are wildly different.
Yeah.
Like in a couple of days than they looked in this video. So the next update will be interesting, I think. And I think they're all looking great except for the shade one. Although Lime Time has put on more growth. We baited that day. Yeah, needed some heat, and we baited, and that's looking a little better. AJ Proverbs 3:5 said, can you use that bug and slug on rose bushes as well? Yes, you can use it anywhere. It's awesome. It's this thing that you sprinkle on the ground to help keep away slugs, snails, earwigs. There's a whole bunch of things on the label, but it works nicely. We used it on that last pot because we noticed not until I was standing right there showing you that the coleus has sustained a bunch of earwig damage. So hopefully we've got it on the right track now. King said, I like the container competition. That's fun. I vote number 4, which was the purple with the Dusty Miller.
That looks really good.
It's a pretty one right now. I'm really happy with how that one came out. I'm happy with a lot of them, though.
Yeah.
But I like the pots matching more, I think. So do I. It's like for me, looking at all those together, it's a fun project, but it's also like, for me, I like cohesion. It looks a lot better and peaceful, but it would really be a struggle to have them all different. Is it bugging you? I mean, not to the point where I'm thinking about it, but I go by them and I think, you know what? Actually, I think it's better that it ended up this way this year, because what I had planned for those was this Supertunia Saffron Finch, which is yellow. Can you imagine?
Oh,
yellow
yeah.
with death right behind it. It would have looked horrible. So
That's
it's
true.
probably better that we ended up doing it this way. So I think I'll just count my blessings
Yeah.
that that's how it ended up being. User said, will the bait work for budworms that eat the petunia, or do you have to spray? You have to spray. It has to be adhered to that leaf, because it's the caterpillars, the budworms, eating on the leaf and ingesting it. That's what kills them. They probably wouldn't go down and ingest a granule. You know, it needs to be on the leaves where they are hatching and starting to feed. OAARBH said, there is a blue volunteer plant by the bottom, white rail in the Dirtlands. What is that? That is a Superbena from last year.
Yeah.
A Superbena Imperial Blue, I think. Or a Violet Ice. I can't remember which one.
Isn't that funny how things like that just seed themselves?
It's getting runoff from that pot. I mean, there is some drainage from that pot, and it runs off, and the land slopes right there down into that. So it's getting water right there, you could tell. Mike Likes Me said, love this video, love this competition. Question, what do you do when your Super Bell's yellow? Sorry if you said, I may have missed it. You want to hit them with chelated iron. We use a fertilizer that has chelated iron in it. It's the Proven Winners water-soluble fertilizer, and that helps keep the leaves nice and deep green. If you're at a point already where you've got a problem, I would probably hit them with straight chelated iron.
Yeah.
The EDDHA chelated iron. You can sprinkle that around, water it in, and that's a real quick, like, boom, fix. And then start in with that water soluble that's got it in it. And you will be back in business. Peggy said, since the pots are flourishing so much, could you cut back on the fertilizer to every other week instead of every week? Like last year, I remember they were so vigorous you had to cut them back. Would that be a good way to control the growth? I love your collaboration with each other. I don't know if I would do that in lieu of like keeping the plants robust and healthy.
Yeah.
I don't know. It would probably be all right.
I feel like adding fertilizer it bulks them up, but it makes them healthy at the same time. Like the leaves look nice and dark green, and I think it's better to keep doing the fertilizer and cut back if necessary.
Sure. Jenny said, was that a Vigo? Is it Vigo or Vago?
Oh, yeah.
Retractable hose reel under the mulberry. How does it compare to the hose link?
Yeah, so I bought 2 of those because I'm just always interested in, anybody's stuff that they've got out. So I bought a 100-foot one and a 130-foot one. Mm-hmm. It's a smaller diameter. Mm-hmm. It's harder to pull out. It kinks easier than the hose link. But if you need 100 feet or 130 feet, you can't get that in a hose link. Mm-hmm. I still would prefer the hose link if you're at 82 feet. Mm-hmm. If you're within 82 feet, I would prefer a hose link. But if you got to go farther than that, it's not bad. It definitely
Doesn't
is reduced.
Doesn't it retract real fast?
It retracts hard. Like when you give it a tug and it comes back in, it's like, be prepared. Mm-hmm. Like they have all these warnings on the box and inside the box and around the box about not letting it retract on its own. Mm-hmm. And I feel like it would explode. If you just let it go and you had like a dram wand on the end of it, it would just hit the end of it and the whole thing would just...
It goes in that fast.
Yeah, it's hardcore.
A Doe and Fawn said, does the bug and slug killer work for roly-polies? Yes, it does. Deb Holt said, didn't Aaron use compost and you use potting soil? Do you think that is the difference in the growth in the plants? Interesting experiment.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about doing that.
Mine are like every bit as... I don't know. I don't really notice.
No, I haven't noticed a difference. They're both doing well. And also, it wasn't like compost all the way down. It was just top dressing with compost or soil. So,
but still, like the water's on top, so it's working the compost nutrients down.
Yeah.
So you're starting off with maybe more nutrients than just straight potting mix.
I'd forgotten about that.
Me too. I haven't noticed a tremendous difference.
No. Well, they're all different plants too, so it's hard to compare.
But you can see, like your Supertunia bubblegum versus the other Super Petunia bubblegums that are planted, you know?
My bubblegum, just the one, it's bulked up big time
Yeah, it
since
has.
the video.
Yeah, with all the heat. Jan Williams said, just love watching all your videos, and though I would call myself a quite knowledgeable gardener, I have learned so much about plants, planting, and moreover how to place color both in the garden and in containers. That's awesome. Question, what is the difference between BT and Captain Jack's dead bug killer? Okay, so the difference, BT is Bacillus thuringiensis, which is a bacteria naturally found in the soil that only targets caterpillars, which is awesome, which means that you are not going to, like you wouldn't want to, but you could spray it willy-nilly and you're not going to kill anything that's flying around. You're not going to kill honeybees. You're not going to kill butterflies. It is just specific to a worm or a caterpillar ingesting it, and it kills them from the inside, which doesn't sound lovely, but it does when you're talking about budworms, because budworms are the worst. So I feel like it's the most benign spray you can use.
Yeah.
And the Captain Jack's Dead Bug brew is a spinosad based, which is also an organic spray, but it's still more of a broad spectrum insecticide. So it's going to target more than just the budworm. So you do need to be careful about when you're using it. Dusk is the best time because all of your flying insects, your honeybees and things have gone to bed for the evening. So you're far less likely to harm any of those. So it's just one of those things that sometimes we'll use BT if all we're dealing with is budworms, but if we're dealing with another issue like aphids, which aphids is not on the label, on spinosad labels, but we'll use that when we're dealing with both budworms and aphids at the same time, and it seems to help with that. So it's still a really good spray, but it is one that you just need to be a little more careful with. Zuko's mom said, what's the difference between Supertunia and Vistas? Supertunias. There are regular Supertunias, Supertunia Vistas, and Supertunia Mini Vistas. Vistas, when it says that, you know that you're going to deal with aggressive and very full growth. Big plants, very productive, really good for not only containers but for landscape applications. If you're wanting to do big color for a lower budget, Vistas is the way you want to go because you can use far less plants than your regular petunias or even supertunias because they grow so much bigger and they're just really good performing plants, like really good performers. Mini Vistas usually are a little bit lower growing. They don't bush up quite as tall as the regular Vistas, and they have smaller flowers. And then regular Supertunias, still really great plants, are just more petite growing. Some of them, though, like Supertunia Bordeaux, we've had them grow out of those pots and to the ground, but they'll do that in the whole season instead of a Vista, which will grow to the ground multiple times. You cut them multiple times and they'll still keep growing.
Vista just means aggressive. It's going to take over.
Yeah. Pair it well. Pair it with Superbena Snowdrift is a good one. Some of the Superbenas aren't as aggressive, but Snowdrift is a good one to pair it with. Any of the other Vistas, Sweet Potato Vine usually keeps up with it.
Yeah.
I've learned a lot through pairing bad things together, what they'll work with now. And sometimes when I see Supertunia Vistas paired with a Super Bells in some of the recipes, I'm like, no, that will not work. Do not do that. But that's just my experience with Super Bells. So I don't know if that's everybody's.
Sure.
Okay, next video was loading up the pond with hardy and tropical water lilies and some beautiful marginal pond plants. So that day was much better than the day before it. We had much more amenable weather to being out in the water putting plants out. And it was really nice. Greg Whitstock had a bunch of pond plants sent in from Oregon Aquatics to Idaho Oasis. Like rigmarole to get pond plants here. So we went and met with Ron from Idaho Oasis. That's the owner. And he just kind of helped facilitate that whole thing. And we were able to pick out the plants that we wanted to put in the pond and tour his facility, which is so, so pretty. They've done so much work in there. And it was inspiring to see all the different, he's got so many different like setups, like fountain and or pond setups in that warehouse space. You can see different like small applications and like that big giant pond he has set up right in the middle. It's really quite neat. Anyway, we just got those put in. I repotted one of the tropical water lilies. That was pretty much the project for that day, I think. Kayla said, so pretty. Do you have to worry about any of the water flowers being invasive? I don't know a ton about pond plants yet. So I'm learning. There is one that they installed last year. It's still there. It's like a vining one, has little yellow flowers, and I have to pull that from, like, I can keep it in check. It's not hard to keep in check, but I think that if you let it go, it could be termed invasive. But yeah, there are some that are invasive and some, just like plants that you plant in the ground, there are some that will take over and some that stay to themselves, and that's just a realm that I'm going to have to learn more about. Jacob Paul said, beautiful choices. When the pond plants say zone 7, wouldn't they be protected in the water from getting too cold, considering you add a heater to keep from freezing over? The heater is not much of a heater. It's only enough to keep a hole in the ice. We didn't get warm enough to even really need it. We got -6, but it wasn't sustained. It didn't stay for very long. It was like a couple of nights. We popped the heater in just in case, but it doesn't keep like the ambient water temperature. It's too big. It's
not like steam is coming off the water.
Yeah, it's too big of a space to use just a little heater on. But I don't know. I wouldn't trust a zone 7 even in the water. I mean, maybe it produces or provides a little bit more insulation for the plant roots, but again, that's an area I need to learn about. We had some of the pond plants we put in not come back from last year, and some of them did. And I don't even know all the names of them yet. User said, have you had any problems with birds trying to get at the fish?
Not at all.
Oh, yeah. No problems up to this point. Melissa said, have you thought about popping up a shade above the pond, or at least the shallow part of it? It would be awesome if we could, but our wind is just too fierce. And we would be dealing with bent poles and shades that had blown away and probably caught up in plants and probably created more damage than it's worth. It would be nice if we could do that.
It'd have to be like a commercial installation, where they put like thick posts in concrete, and then have a shade cloth that you either replace. But yeah.
Holly said, have you ever fallen down in the pond? Not yet. Not yet. And people ask, like, isn't it slippery? It's not really.
No.
It's not really slippery. And the waders that I'm getting in with, they have those big boots with super big tread on them. They're way too big for my feet. It was the only size I could find in town when I needed to. But they work, and I haven't slipped yet. I'm sure it will happen one of these days. Judy said, are you still going to proceed with adding on to the pond in the fall? I think we are. From what we've been hearing, adding more water and more movement can only help improve our string algae issue, which is improving. It's getting better, and we're figuring some little things out along the way. At the point where we put in the pond plants, it wasn't like big strings. It's just a little green fuzz. Like you can see individual rocks now at the bottom of the pond, while before it was like you could hardly see the fish.
Yeah.
Like for the amount of string algae that was in there, it was just like you could reach in and just gather up. It was so bad. So it is improving, and I do think that the stream will improve it even more. Hopard said, I was wondering if you can tell how the tadpoles are doing. Would the koi be tempted to eat them? I don't know. I haven't seen them since. I mean, we saw them for the next couple of days after we put them in there. And there's frogs in there already, so I don't know. The fish that we put in there, even the 3 little babies, I just saw one of them for the first time a couple of days ago, and then I saw 2 of them yesterday. They've been hiding in the fish cave. They're just like, oh my goodness, where have you put me? So I saw the butterfly koi come out, and then I saw the little multicolored one, and I don't know what the kinds are yet, come out. I haven't seen the 3rd one yet, but I'm sure it's just chilling in the fish cave. Jessica said, did the fish that was pregnant have its babies? If it did, we didn't know it. So, and they said that sometimes in May, you'll see kind of like a foam on the water. And that's usually during the time when they've had their eggs. And most of the time, the eggs that survive are ones that get like caught up in plants, or they're protected in like even a filter sort of area. We looked around and never really noticed that, but we've been dealing with that string algae issue enough, or we were dealing with that so much that we probably scooped out whatever.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
I don't know. Christina said, have you ever tried barley bales for algae control? I'm always amazed after I put one in my pond at how fast the water clears.
Give it a shot.
Yeah, I know. My parents have some, I think, down at the garden center.
Really?
Yeah, we should ask
Next year.
Greg about that and see what he thinks.
Yeah.
Shelly said, are you worried the cats can get in there and get the fish? My cat would have a feast. No. No. In fact, there was, poor little bird. There's a bird that got kicked out or fell out of the nest, a little baby bird. And both Douglas and Russell saw that bird this morning.
Yeah.
I went and gave them food to try to distract them, and they don't care. They're just like laying down. The bird's right there, and they don't mess with it at all. They're too well fed.
They're well fed. They don't mess with.
Also, I don't know if the question was included in today's roundup. We still have a whole video's worth of questions to answer, but I know that it's been asked a lot, so I thought I would address it. But people have been wondering where Cheddar is. Cheddar went to go live at Bethany's house. Bethany and Cheddar they've created a sort of bond. Bethany is a huge animal lover, and like I love animals too, but here's the deal, and you guys know this. Cheddar was spraying on everything, and we had talked about it before, and how it was becoming a problem. We have so many feral cats coming through, and it got to a point where I was sitting with my legs crossed out at the high tunnel, sitting on the edge of one of the tables, and Cheddar backed up to me, and I moved my legs just in time for him to spray right in between my legs. Like he was going to spray me. No. No. I'm not going to have a cat around that will spray my kids or myself. I did notice that there was some comments going around that we had done away with him, like that we had helped him over the Rainbow Bridge. And we did not do that. I could not do that. And I was kind of like offended that people were spreading that around, that we had done that. We did not. We just found him.
Well, it was just convenient because Bethany was like, he can come live with me. Because we all
Cheddar.
like share. Well, actually, they don't like cleaning up any of the spray either because like he would get into the barn and just spray everything. And, like their
stuff and
they don't like that either. And so we were all talking about it, and Bethany was like, he can come live with me. We were like, are you serious?
So it worked out perfect, and he's fine, and don't worry. I just hate that there's worry that he's actually like, that we did something like that to harm him, and we did not. And guess what, since he has not been here, we haven't had a single, even the big toms that come around, not a single spray issue anywhere. Zero things sprayed. So anyway, thought I would just address that so that we can stop seeing that question hopefully surface in videos. Okay, next one was sumac removal, redbud repair, and bean crop failure. So we went out and we took care of the tiger eye sumacs out in the South Garden. It's one of those things that, I learned from doing, but from what I had understood about that plant, it wasn't supposed to spread as aggressively as the older varieties of sumac, and it was supposed to stay more contained. And I didn't mind if it spread a little bit, but you guys, it was starting to pop up like in the lawn on the other side of that flower bed, and it was popping up underneath a bunch of plants and just everywhere. So we decided before it becomes an issue that all of us have to battle every single year, let's just get them out. And I love it.
It's better.
Yeah. I just didn't even realize. So those sumacs are very yellow, and I like to have a little splash of yellow here and there in the garden, but it was a lot of yellow, and the new growth kind of was tinged orange, so it had a very warm look to it. Once we removed them, I realized how much more lush it made everything around it look. That if you get too much yellow, it kind of drags down the look of an area in our neck of the woods anyway, because we deal with so much chlorosis and iron deficiency issues that a lot of time when a plant looks yellow, it's because it is sick, unless you know that plant's not supposed to look that way. So I was surprised by the lift that it gave that area to see those gone. And none of us are going to have to deal with it anymore. Well, until we eventually rogue out all the roots in that area. We applied that vine and stump killer to the stumps after Aaron cut them down. They were easy to remove. Like 10 minutes and done.
Yeah, they were kind of like, I want to say even less dense than the like black lace elderberry. You know what I mean? Because like black lace is pretty light.
Yeah.
You can snap those. It's a very soft wood, but this was even more soft than that.
Yeah. So we took care of that, and then I cleaned up an eastern redbud in the same flower bed. And it looks a lot better. I did show it to you. What do you think?
Yeah. You know what? If you're happy, I'm happy.
Good answer. Actually, I think it looks way better.
Oh, it looks way better, for sure.
It does. And I think that it has a fighting chance. And I don't really have a tree that I have in mind to put in that space. So we may as well let that one stay, see what happens with it. And then we can go from there. And then after that, we went and looked at the bean crop failure. My goodness, I had planted soybeans, lima beans, corn, pole beans, sunflowers, all in the same day. Corn, pole beans, sunflowers, up and beautiful. Like the corn's this tall, maybe even taller than that now. And nothing from the soybeans and lima beans, one plant out of that whole section, which is very weird. I usually don't have that tremendous of a failure. Like sometimes I'll fail like a little bit, but not seeding stuff in the ground. I usually have pretty good luck. So I don't know what happened. I couldn't see that anything had come along and eaten them. However, some pests like that are very elusive, and I just couldn't find any seed. I dug around in a whole bunch of that area, could not find, and those lima bean seeds are huge. Like you would find some leavings of a seed. Even if they had gotten too wet and were starting to rot, you would find that little rot pocket, but there's nothing. And I have video proof that I did it, but it was like I had never been there, minus the one lima bean plant that came out.
Maybe it was a dream.
I don't know. Anyway, that's what that day held. Zormier said, "Are you afraid they will root in your dump pile?" No. They're on top of a bunch of other brush, so their roots aren't touching the ground, and it's too dry. It's just too dry for them to that works, but it's too dry for them to root in, and they're too high off the ground.
Yeah.
Don't you think?
Oh yeah. I mean, who knows?
Never say never.
Yeah.
But yeah. Sid SLH said, I see the hairband on your wrist. Lord, does that mean you had your hair in a ponytail? That means that I was planning to have my hair in a ponytail when I was going to take the kids out to the swimming pool. That was in preparation for that. Ula said, wild smooth sumac comes into my yard via 10+ foot runners from my neighbor's mostly ignored way back. That's what I was kind of afraid would start happening. Little plantlets pop up after the rain, and I was able to find a big root this spring and pull it out, following my drip line almost exactly. Isn't that interesting? Would you consider sumac or some other spreading shrubby tree on the slope at the new back of your property? The DOT in Minnesota uses them to stabilize hillsides, and they are pretty. I remember as a kid loving hiding in the low canopy they form as a sort of natural secret fort.
No, because we have neighbors.
Yeah, it would crawl out under fences, and then we would have the nightmare of trying to like rein them in. If we had a proper barrier, I mean, there's root barriers you can like trench and put in. But I don't think that's something we want to do. That would be beautiful, though. Can you imagine that hillside?
Yeah.
Oh, that would be very pretty. Julie said, whenever you are in the South Garden, I check out the arbs that were planted along the west side. And they look so beautiful today, especially. They are so thick and lush. I wonder, have you topped them? No. We haven't really done much to them.
I don't want to top them. I want them to cover the houses.
Yeah, and they will eventually. Yeah. Maybe not the whole roof, but at least all the windows, like up to some portion of the roof.
You might be able to see like peaks.
Yeah, there are 3-ish or so that are just...
I've already replaced them multiple times.
I wonder if you got that 24-inch auger in there and just like really went to town with those holes.
Well, I kind of did last year.
Did you?
I didn't use, an auger, a big auger, but I really reamed out the whole hole, and I thought, I can't see anything. There's nothing in there.
Have you dug around? Like, is it staying too wet or too dry, or have you been able to determine?
Yeah, one time that I pulled one out, it was like sopping wet in the hole. But the thing is, it's just in a row. Like they're all getting the same water, and so it's really hard to try to treat one differently.
Yeah,
it's like they're all getting the same irrigation, and obviously, 99% of them are loving it. That's the hard part.
Right. Well, we need to find 3 more North Poles here soonish.
Well, see if your mom can place another order with Blooming.
Bountiful.
Yeah.
Barbara said, don't you have a mini chainsaw that you use to get branches in some of your trees around the property, or does that only work on the pole? Oh, I brought that out with us. You just decided to use the hand pruner or the hand saw.
Yeah, well, we had the wrong bit on the reciprocating saw. And but yeah, that Felco pruner, it's
like
such soft wood.
Yeah.
Even with harder wood, it's really not that much work.
Yeah.
And there's less chance of chopping off a finger.
Sherry said 2 things. Why didn't you use your seed planting machine to plant those seeds? Also, I hope your grape hyacinth doesn't give you the same problem as a sumac did. It's virtually impossible to eradicate. I've been pulling up mine for 30 years. Ours, like grape hyacinths here, they do spread, but they spread better in areas that have drip irrigation. So I don't worry about those quite as much. And I wonder about the sumac too. Like once we pull all of that drip, I wonder if a lot of that suckering will stop, or it'll quell some of it because I won't have as much water. So same with the grape hyacinths. The seed planting machine, I didn't get it out for that seeding because it was such a small area that I just popped them in, and it's all tilled up, so it's really easy. When I initially planted everything, Bethany had borrowed the machine, but it's still a small area, and I would probably, if I'm doing big long areas like I did out in the Dirtlands last year, that was so worth it to have that machine. And Bethany plants a huge garden, so I'd much rather her be using it for her planting than me on my little tiny rows compared to what she's doing. Gildis G said, do you fertilize your arbs once established?
Yeah.
With Plantone. Once a season in the spring, typically.
And I do it real scientific. Can't see it on the camera. Like that.
Oh, me mom. Oh, me mom said, cute, productive video. Are you allowed to burn the waste pile of garden stuff? We are at certain times of the year. You have to call the city and let them know. We call the city and let him know, and we let our neighbor, who was used to be a firefighter, we let him know too. So when he sees the big pillar of smoke, he's not too stressed out. And when we had that big giant pile, remember, he monitored it.
Yeah. This year, I almost feel like we should just use the Bobcat, load it up in a dump trailer, and just dump it down the hill.
I don't want to do that. I don't want to create a dump hill.
Yeah.
I'll figure something out for that. Melissa said, why not put one in a giant pot? That way you still have the fall color. That is a thought.
It'll grow out the bottom.
Well, it will. You'd want to put it on a
Put it
solid
up.
surface.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, either that or put it up on, would that work to put it up on legs?
Probably. Yeah, it would still want to reach down and
You
it
think?
would probably root in. Well, it's
You
kind
could
of
at
like
least
mint.
get down there and cut it.
Cut it. It'd probably plug up the drain hole eventually.
Yeah, it would.
But you could get away with it for a little while. I mean, I think you could probably do a couple, 3 years before it became. I mean, I've never done it, so I don't know. But I imagine it would be a lot like mint.
Yeah.
It'd fill up its container pretty quickly, and you'd want to keep it off of soil, or you just create a problem right there. And you guys, that is it for today's recap video. Boy, that went fast. Was that all of them?
Oh, I did have one thing I wanted to mention. We created a Garden Answer Store Facebook account, Instagram account, and YouTube channel. And we're going to host videos like how to use products that we have on our store. And the reason we did that was so that they can live there, and we'll run like ads on those. And if you like hate seeing it, you can block it.
And it
you
won't change
see
our normal stuff.
It won't change anything.
What
You'll
you're
still
seeing
see the
now,
regular
yeah.
videos. You just won't see any of the store stuff. So if it's annoying to you, then you can make it go away without making the videos go away. But I think it'll be good. And it'll give us an outlet for showing, like, because some of the times on the products on the site, you kind of need to show how it's used, and you need somewhere to host those videos. So anyway, there you go.
Cool.
Garden Answer Store.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for watching today's video. I hope you enjoyed it, and we will see you in the next one. Bye.